The fog is thick on the mountain. It is early morning, July 22, 1992. 400 elite Colombian soldiers surround a compound high in the hills above Medellin. They are nervous. Their hands are tight on their automatic weapons. They have orders to capture the most dangerous man on earth. They believe he is trapped inside. They believe he is sleeping in a prison cell. The order comes to move in. They kick down the heavy gates. They rush the main buildings. They are ready for a massive gunfight. But they find silence. They move room to room. They find things they do not expect to find in a prison. They find a bar stocked with expensive whiskey. They find a specialized room with a large bubbling jacuzzi. They find a disco with professional lighting and a DJ booth. They find a closet full of designer suits. But the cell is empty. The bed is cold. The most wanted man in the world has vanished into the mist. The prison was a lie, and the escape was the ultimate embarrassment for a government that thought they finally had control. How did a mass murderer build a palace and call it a jail? How did Escobar do this? What happens next? But this didn't start here. To understand the empty prison on the mountain, we have to go back 2 years. Colombia was burning. Pablo Escobar was at total war with the government. He was the head of the Medellin cartel. He was making billions of dollars a year selling cocaine. He had absolute power. But the government was fighting back. They were hunting his family. They were seizing his property. So Pablo fought back harder. He exploded bombs in busy city streets. He blew up an airliner full of innocent people. He assassinated presidential candidates. The country was terrified. But Pablo was also terrified. He had one supreme fear that kept him awake at night. It was not the Colombian police. He could buy them. It was not rival drug lords. He could kill them. It was extradition to the United States. He had a famous saying, "Better a grave in Colombia than a prison cell in the U.S." He knew that in an American supermax prison, his money was useless, his power was gone. He would die alone in a concrete box. He needed a way out. He was tired of running. He was tired of sleeping in different safe houses every night. He wanted peace, but he wanted peace on his own terms. He wanted to stop the war, but keep his empire. And that's when everything changed. He made the government an offer they couldn't refuse. He said he would surrender. He would turn himself in. He would go to prison for his crimes. The bombings would stop. The killing would stop. The government was desperate. The country was drowning in blood. They needed a win. They agreed to Pablo's terms. But Pablo had conditions, many conditions. First, the government had to change the Constitution to ban extradition. They did it. Second, he would not go to a normal prison. He said normal prisons were unsafe for him. His enemies would kill him there. He demanded to build his own prison. He would pay for it. He would design it. He chose the location, a site high in the mountains called La Catedral, the cathedral. It overlooked the city of Medellin, his hometown. He said it was for security. The high ground gave him a strategic advantage if his enemies attacked. The government agreed. They just wanted him locked up. They told the world that the kingpin was finally facing justice. They told the public that Pablo Escobar was behind bars. It was a massive political victory. The president looked like a hero. On June 19, 1991, Pablo Escobar arrived at La Catedral. He waved to the cameras. He handed his pistol to the authorities. The heavy gates closed behind him. The world breathed a sigh of relief.
The war was over. The bad guy was in jail. But they had no idea what was actually happening behind those walls. Before we go deeper, make sure you're subscribed. We post stories like this every single day.
From the outside, La Catedral looked tough. It had high fences topped with razor wire. It had guard towers. It had military checkpoints on the road up the mountain. But the guards in the towers were not government employees. Pablo chose them. Pablo paid their salaries. They did not wear official uniforms. Their job was not to keep Pablo in. Their job was to keep his enemies out. Inside the walls, the reality was shocking. It was not a prison. It was a 5-star country club. Pablo did not live in a small concrete cell. He built himself a large suite. He had a king-sized bed. He had a private bathroom with imported fixtures. He didn't eat cold prison food on a metal tray. He hired professional chefs. They cooked him steak and lobster whenever he wanted it. Pablo loved soccer more than anything, so he used a bulldozer to flatten the mountainside. He built a professional-grade soccer field right in the middle of the prison. He didn't just play with other inmates. He invited famous professional soccer players from the Colombian national team. They came up to the prison to play exhibition games with the world's biggest drug dealer. It was surreal. But Pablo got bored easily. He needed entertainment. A normal prison has lights out at 9 p.m. Not here. Pablo built a disco. It was a real club inside the walls. It had flashing lights. It had a professional DJ booth. It had a bar stocked with the most expensive whiskey in the world. Every weekend, trucks would drive up the mountain road past the army checkpoints. They were not bringing supplies for inmates. They were bringing party supplies. They brought champagne. They brought musicians. And they brought women. Beauty queens, models, prostitutes. They all came to party at La Catedral. The prison became the hottest spot in Medellin. The government knew this was happening. They looked the other way. They were just happy the bombings had stopped. They accepted the lie to keep the peace. But that was only the beginning. Pablo didn't just party in prison. He worked. The government said he was cut off from the outside world. That was another lie. He had private telephone lines installed. He had fax machines. He had two-way radios. He was running his global cocaine empire from his jacuzzi. He held meetings with his accountants. He ordered shipments to Miami and New York. He settled disputes with rival gangs. He ordered hits on people who crossed him. La Catedral wasn't a punishment. It was his new headquarters. It was the perfect setup. He was safe from the police because he was already in jail. He was safe from his enemies because he was surrounded by his own guards on a fortified mountain. He was never more powerful. He was untouchable. And when a man becomes untouchable, his ego grows out of control. And that's when everything changed. When you're locked inside a compound with your own crew, paranoia sets in. Pablo started hearing rumors. He heard that some of his top lieutenants on the outside were stealing from him. They were hiding money. They were making deals behind his back. Pablo Escobar could not tolerate betrayal. His greed was legendary. He needed to send a message. He summoned 4 of his top associates to come to La Catedral. They thought it was a normal business meeting. They drove up the mountain. They walked through the gates. They were escorted to Pablo's private quarters. Pablo confronted them. He accused them of theft. They denied it. They begged him to believe them. It didn't matter. Pablo had already decided their fate. Inside the walls of the prison that the government allowed him to build, Pablo put them on trial. It was a kangaroo court. He was the judge, jury, and executioner. He ordered his guards to take them to a back room. They were brutally tortured for hours while Pablo waited. Then they were murdered. Their bodies were burned in a fire pit on the prison grounds. Their remains were buried near the soccer field.
It was an act of savage violence inside a state facility. Pablo thought he could get away with it. He thought he could hide the bodies. He thought he was above the law. He was wrong. Now, everyone knows he was. What happened next shocked everyone. You cannot hide a multiple murder forever. Rumors started to leak down the mountain. People began to whisper about what happened at La Catedral. The families of the missing men started asking dangerous questions. The pressure on the government became unbearable. The truth was too big to hide. The president of Colombia looked like a fool. He had made a deal with the devil, and the devil had broken the rules. The Americans were furious. They pressured the Colombian president to act. They said La Catedral was a joke. It was an embarrassment to justice. The president knew he had to do something. The deal was over. He made a secret decision. He would send the army in. They would take control of La Catedral. They would grab Pablo, and they would move him to a real military prison, a place with real bars and real guards. But he had no idea what was coming.
July 22, 1992. The order is given. The military operation begins. A high-ranking government official is sent up the mountain first. His job is to tell Pablo the news, to convince him to surrender peacefully. He arrives at the gate. He is brought to Pablo. The official is nervous. He tells Pablo that due to security concerns, he must be moved to a new facility. Pablo listens quietly. He is sitting in his comfortable chair. He looks calm, but his eyes are burning with rage. He knows exactly what this means. The golden cage is closing. The party is over. If he goes to a military prison, he loses control, and the next step after a military prison is a plane to the United States. His worst nightmare is coming true. Pablo looks at the official. He says, "I am not going anywhere." He gives a subtle signal to his guards. Instantly, Pablo's men pull out hidden submachine guns. They take the government official hostage. It is a standoff inside the prison. Pablo gets on the radio. He calls the guards in the outer towers. He tells them the army is coming. He tells them to fight. Outside, the army commanders are waiting. They hear about the hostage situation. They know negotiations have failed. Night falls over the mountain. A thick, heavy fog rolls in. It covers the entire compound. You cannot see your own hand in front of your face. Visibility is zero. Nature is providing cover for Pablo. The army commanders are nervous. They don't want a bloodbath in the dark. They wait for dawn. It is a massive tactical error. Inside, Pablo knows the terrain better than anyone. He built this place. He knows every trail on the mountain. He gathers his closest men. They grab weapons and cash. They go to a back fence near the soccer field.
It is a section of the fence that Pablo had specifically designed to be weak, just in case. They kick out a brick wall. They slide through a gap in the wire. They step out into the thick fog. They are completely silent. They walk right past the army perimeter. Hundreds of soldiers are standing just yards away, blindly staring into the mist. They never see the group of men slipping down the steep hillside. Pablo walks for miles through the dark jungle. By the time the sun rises, he is far away. He is back in the city of Medellin. He is back in the shadows. The next morning, the fog lifts. The army finally storms the compound. They are ready for war. They find nothing but empty luxury. Soldiers wander through the complex in shock. They see the half-drunk bottles of expensive alcohol on the bar. They see the jacuzzi water is still warm. They find the closet full of expensive suits. They see the huge collection of soccer cleats next to the field. But the king is gone. The golden cage is empty. The news breaks around the world. The government is humiliated. The peace of the century is a total failure. Pablo Escobar is free again. The peace is over. The war starts again immediately. The bombings return to the cities. The kidnappings begin again. But this time it is different. There will be no more deals. There will be no more luxury prisons. The government is embarrassed and furious. The hunt is on, and this time it will not end until Pablo is dead. Pablo got his jacuzzi, he got his disco, he got his year of luxury, but he lost his only chance for peace. In the end, power always comes with a price. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe and follow the channel. We upload new videos every single day. And trust me, the next story is even more intense, more surprising, and something you definitely don't want to miss. I'll see you in the next one.